to try and make things a bit easier for myself, is I'm going to use the heat shield to my benefit when it goes back on. So I'm going to see if I can hide the air duct underneath the heat shield, the air intake, sorry, not air duct, air intake, and the exhaust on beneath the heat shield. So the heat shield's actually doing its job, protecting it from the diesel heater exhaust as well. Because of the fuel lines all coming through here as well, which seems like a crazy thing to do anyway, but I bought some Webasto 90-degree bends, which makes life a bit easier, and some proper crimp fuel clips, which you basically use these jobbies to put together, and they're way better than anything you can, like any other, like universal joint, Jubilee clips. So that is what I'm using on here. So I'm just going to trim off these four coach screws going through, and then I'm going to start looking to see how the heat shield goes. Fuel tank perspective. I've got hold of my 24-litre marine fuel tank. It fits lovely widthways on here, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to put it lengthways, but as it happens, it fits perfectly in here. Got one of my AliExpress belts, which is absolutely great. So that's literally just tacked on at the back down there. And then around here, I've put an extra piece of plywood, carpeted it to make it look pretty, and put the belt through here as well. So this tank, now with its quick release fuel line, means I can take the tank completely out and drain it, or just keep it out the car whenever I want to. It's just held in with a couple of brackets, so when I want to put the fridge back in, I can just tidy it back on. To get the heat shield back on the car, so I want to get it prepped up. Just to recap, I bought some repair panels from Amazon. It's like, I don't know, like a tenner or something. And you get 5, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get 5 in a pack. It was a bit annoying, but most of them are okay. And then a couple other spaces I had some damage. I've just used some old spacer washers I had from a Beetle, I think. So all I need to do now is drill out these holes just to make them that bit bigger so they match with the original holes size. So when I fit it on, I'm not going to be struggling around trying to force it onto the pegs. So I'm going to do that quickly now using a step drill bit, which I've lost. It's here. So I'm going to use a step drill bit to get that to the same size, and then we're going to start looking at getting it onto the car. Then we need to measure up whereabouts, I can't remember which way around this actually goes at the moment, but we're going to have to work out whereabouts I need to drill through to let the exhaust and the air inlet and the fuel line come out through this. So let's do these holes first. There we go. So they're all drilled out, ready to go back onto the car. So I need to now get this lined up with the car outside and work out where to drill the holes for the heater, exhaust, inlet and fuel line. Okay, we're just about to get stamped on by British summertime. Liquid summer is coming out of the sky, so we're having to bring this inside. But what we've done, we have managed to marry this up underneath the car and work out where everything needs to be cut. I've managed to trim off the coach screws with the angle grinder that come through from fitting the actual diesel heater to the bottom of the wheel well, apart from one, which I'm ready to try and get to somehow. It's kind of buried in there to try and get to with an angle grinder. However, we've managed to measure up where the hole needs to be. So literally we're going to have the exhaust, whichever way around this ends up being, exhaust this end, exhaust this end, hang on, exhaust this end, and the air intake this end with the fuel line. This goes towards the front of the car. This is what you're going to look at looking up at the car. This is the back of the car, and that is the front of the car. So fingers crossed, if the rain doesn't carry on and I can actually get out there, we're going to have a quick try and see if we can get this fit up and onto the car, and then we can start fitting all the other bits and pieces. Okay, the heat shield went on without too much fuss actually, so it's all back on in place. I actually cut the hole in exactly the right place, believe it or not. That never happens to me, so happy with that. I've got all these little extra heat shield mounting nuts. I don't really know what you call them, mounting things. These came with the kit, and I actually had some spare ones off my Corrado. So rather than using the actual screw-on ones, which rust like hell and get stuck, I'm using these instead. So they're all up there. I need one more, I think, but it's all pretty firm. This isn't going to come off. And now I can start rigging up the exhaust and everything, and wondering where on earth I'm going to actually feed everything. But the good thing is that the line that goes through to the fuel tank, this doesn't touch the heat shield, so that's great. It would have been nice if I could actually got that line underneath the heat shield, but it just wasn't going to happen. It's going to end up putting too much pressure, pushing it upwards, and I don't want that. So it'll run on top of it, but I've got special like a line covering, which is fire resistant line covering and heat resistant line covering. So we should be good to go. Now I've got to work out where on earth I'm going to put the exhaust for and the intake for the diesel. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. So where do we look at? We are looking at, let's go first for the exhaust. So this is the exhaust. What I've done, I've utilised the little stud points for the heat shield, and you get this little bracket, L-shaped bracket. You have to kind of make it into a U-shaped bracket, attach it on with an eye lock. It shouldn't get too hot. And then I've used the actual heat shield nut to keep this all on. I've then zip tied it. Yes, zip tied it. I know they're not called zip ties, but I call them zip ties. Metal zip tie, attaching it to the actual exhaust of the car. Now this should be fine. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be fine. It's an exhaust, I'm not an exhaust, and it's got heat shield covering and all that kind of stuff, so that should be okay. That wings its way through and is attached to the exhaust outlet of the diesel heater. Next, air inlet. That runs through here. Again, utilising the stud of the heat shield, and then it sits nicely behind this towing point. This is where I think all the tow bar would attach to and all that kind of stuff. But either way, it's a lift point on the car. So it's nicely tucked away there and then zip tied in place.
Wait, no, it's here.
The fuel line is attached underneath here. Two L-shaped 90-degree Webasto rubber mounts, 90-degree bends, sorry. Terrible, trying to think of what words to use. And then they are crimped into place, and then I've got this heat resistant covering going over the top, and then again using just a P-clip and a zip tie, using the heat shield stud again to keep it out the way of the exhaust. But that should be absolutely fine. So we are done underneath the car, thankfully. I'm bored of being under here, my back's hurting. So we now need to get up the top. The only thing left to do is to actually wire it up. So that's the last thing to do, and then we can put some diesel in it and see if it works. Don't ask why I've got the compressor lid off. That's a whole new thing. So don't worry about that. However, I've taken the opportunity of pushing the kitchen back into the car to hardwire in the diesel heater now. So that's all wired in. So this now works with the app or with the control on here. That will turn on, turn off, and I can control it remotely. There's clearly no diesel because the tank goes in here and there's no diesel attached to it. So I can't test it until I've got the kitchen back over this way and got the diesel, well, actually got some diesel. But then I'm going to give it a go and see whether it heats. I'm too impatient to wait to put the kitchen back in. So got myself half a tank of fuel. This little marine tank's brilliant. Fuel gauge on it and everything. So I've whacked in that. This is all ready to go. And now I need to power on the actual the unit. I need to do a purging thing first. Manual pump mode by turning it on and then pressing the up and down arrows for 2 seconds, and it puts it into this oil mode, which should set the pump going in a moment and start priming the pump with fuel from the tank. And there we go. Pump has started going. Yeah, pump is quietening down a bit. There we go. Much quieter. Well, it's doing something. It definitely smells like diesel. There is heat. There is heat coming out the heater. Not going to freeze in Norway. Okie dokie, this is the final stage of the heater. So it's all set up, ready to go. This is linked to the leisure battery rather than the starter battery, so I can run it overnight without worrying where I'm going to take the starter battery out of action. But it does all work. Let's turn it on. And then it primes to a degree, and you'll start hearing it prime at some point, but it's all quite quiet now, so under there. I'll start filming when it starts priming up. So hear the fan, just about hear the fuel pump. Very, very quiet actually, it's a really good one. And we now have a bit of smoke coming out of the exhaust, but not as bad as last time when I over-primed it. We should start getting some heat coming through. And yeah, I've got to put the pipe back up through the hole, but we have got heat. So we've now got heating. Very happy with that. So that's going to get poked back up onto the exit inside. There is some white smoke coming out at the moment, but that is only because I over-primed it the other day and there's still quite a lot of diesel in the chamber. So that will stop calming down at some point soon. All good. It's always fun when it's blown white smoke. I am assured that this will stop. It's running fine now. Still a few puffs of white smoke, but it's over-fueling probably a little bit. I will tune it up. But for the time being, it is working and it's providing heat inside, so I won't freeze. Whee! That's finally it for the install. Thanks for your patience on this. I'm really happy with the end result. It's really warm, it doesn't draw as much power as I thought it would, and it's nice and tidy. Thanks for joining me again and for coming back to the channel. If you'd like to stay in touch and see what else we're doing in preparation for the Norway trip, please subscribe, get notifications, and if you want to leave a comment, please do. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you.